It's strange, how some moments in life seem so distant until you're reminded of them again. The memory is sharp, vivid, and visceral, like it happened just yesterday. But for me, it happened years ago. Yet I can still feel the tightness in my chest when I think about it. You've been asking me for a long time now to share my story. You wanted to hear about that day, the day the school lockdown changed everything. It was just another Friday afternoon at high school, 7th period, the tail end of a long week. Calculus. If you've ever been there, you know exactly the kind of energy that fills the room. Everyone's mentally checked out, the anticipation of spring break hanging in the air. You could almost feel the weight lifting off our shoulders. Mr. Miller, a laid-back guy who always made class fun, pulled up a Sporkle quiz on brand logos, and we were all happily lost in it. Laughter filled the room, everyone's voices blending together, the sound of the clock ticking in the background. The atmosphere was relaxed, almost too relaxed. Then it happened. I remember the exact moment it shifted. Right after my friend answered the question, Adidas. And before we could even finish celebrating, the voice of the dean came through the loudspeaker. But this time, it wasn't the usual monotone tone you hear when someone's just reminding us to walk safely in the hallways. His voice, panicked, frantic, sent a wave of cold fear through the entire class. "This is not a drill," the dean said, almost gasping for air. "Go into lockdown immediately." The room fell silent. The air shifted. The kind of silence that clings to your skin, thick and heavy. My body stiffened. My heart raced. The calm was shattered in an instant. Mr. Miller, who had always been the most relaxed person in the room, bolted for the lights, cutting the room into darkness. He ushered us to the back corner, where we huddled together in absolute silence, not daring to make a sound. For 2 minutes, we stayed still. Then, without warning, the usual humming of the electrical panel in the back of the room, something we'd all grown used to, stopped. The power had been cut. The school was now completely silent. We all looked at each other. The growing unease was palpable. It was real. This wasn't a drill. Something was wrong. A few minutes passed, maybe 5, maybe 10. Time seemed to drag on endlessly, each second stretching into eternity. Then we heard it. A man's scream, raw, desperate, echoed down the hallway. It wasn't just a scream. It was primal, unhinged. It was the sound of a person losing their mind. "I'll kill all of you!" The words were incoherent, but the fury was unmistakable. Panic erupted in the class. Some of the girls started crying, their sobs infectious. A cold wave of terror spread across the room. The man's voice grew louder as he approached. Then, the banging started. Hard, violent thuds against the lockers. Each hit shook the air, sending tremors through the room. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears. The sound got closer. The man's angry shouts only grew louder. And then, he reached our door. "Open up!" He screamed, each word dripping with madness. One of the girls screamed in terror, her voice high-pitched, desperate. It felt like an eternity as we sat there, frozen in fear. The pounding on the door was deafening now. The shaking of the door felt like it would rip us all apart. "Stay quiet," Mr. Miller whispered, his voice shaking, his calm facade crumbling. We all knew we weren't safe. We could hear the madness creeping closer with every second. But just as suddenly as it had started, the banging stopped. The scream faded away into silence, a silence that felt worse than the chaos. The weight of the unknown hung heavily in the air. We couldn't breathe. 10 minutes passed. Or maybe it was 30. Time was irrelevant now. The dean came back on the loudspeaker, his voice still shaken, but clearer. He explained what had happened. A mentally unstable man had entered the building, assaulted a woman at the front desk, and chased her out of the building. No one knew if he was armed. The school, unprepared and lacking proper security, was completely open to something like this happening. The staff had conducted a sweep, but they couldn't find him. And so the dean instructed the teachers to resume class, but with strict orders to lock all doors and prevent anyone from leaving. But the worst part? The janitor found him, asleep, in a storage closet near the back of the school, A .44 Magnum was reportedly sticking out of his pocket. The janitor, it seemed, must have done something to wake him up, leaving the closet door open perhaps. By the time the police arrived, the man was gone. Disappeared. My entire class to this day has no idea if he was ever caught. But I like to think that somewhere, someone finally got him the help he needed. A few weeks later, the lockdown happened again. It was October, overcast and rainy during the first lunch period. I heard 4 loud booms. At first I thought it was thunder, but the lunch crowd erupted into screams. Campus security rushed in, shouting at us to head to the multi-purpose room. Kids who were still in line tossed their lunches and rushed inside. We huddled together in the large glass-walled room. The windows were covered with curtains by the adults, and I could see the panic in their eyes. Eric, curious as always, asked one of the adults what was going on. When he returned, he looked like he had seen a ghost. "There's a man," he said. "He's barricaded himself in his house across the street. He's threatening to commit suicide, and he's saying he'll kill the cops if they try to evict him." That was bad enough, but then Eric added, "He's a registered sex offender, and he's been watching us." We were trapped in that room for an hour. 2 full periods spent in a place filled with anxiety and uncertainty. Eventually, we were escorted to our classrooms, one by one. But there was more. I found out later that the man lived right next to Brandy's house, the same man who, last Halloween, had been seen cutting his own arm and writing in his blood on his window, "Don't come here or I'll kill you." At the time, we thought it was a sick Halloween joke. After the lockdown, we knew better. A few weeks ago, I returned to the high school, now a 22-year-old computer intern. The basement was a mess, filthy and disorganized, but I had a small office down there. It was my sanctuary, quiet, with air conditioning and all the tech I could need. It was great, until it wasn't. My coworkers weren't in the office that day. I was eating my lunch when I got the call. The school was on lockdown again. A possibly armed man had entered the building. I did what I could, turned off the lights, kept my phone on silent, and waited. No calls, no updates. I sat there in the dark, texting Gary and Dave, but no responses. 20 minutes passed, then the basement door creaked open. Footsteps. I froze. Someone was coming down the stairs. I ducked under my desk, heart pounding, paralyzed with fear. The footsteps grew louder, closer. I held my breath. My phone buzzed. A message from Dave. "Some guy with a gun just shot Mr. Buckley. He's wearing a red shirt and hat. Whatever you do, don't come upstairs." I glanced up and saw him. The man. Red shirt. Hat. My stomach dropped. He saw me staring at him. The panic in his eyes shifted to something darker. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out above us. The noise was deafening, ricocheting in the basement. I ran. I made it upstairs just as police swarmed the building. The man was arrested. Mr. Buckley survived. But the question remained, why? What had provoked this? That gunshot. It still echoes in my mind.